What is good, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video. We're here for my 2023/2024 NBA standings predictions. My last video, my 2023/2024 award predictions, and I plan on these videos being back to back. They're obviously still back to back, but the main difference is there's a day break between them. Now, a little backstory, I have these wrote out. I write in pen, so there's no changing them. But something dramatic happened on Sunday that, potentially I probably should change, but like I said, I'm not. So we obviously will get to it when we get to it, and you probably know, if you're in the NBA world, you know what the hell I'm talking about. And another thing, I'm a Grizzlies fan, so that should give it away. But more of the story is I'm here to provide my predictions for the 2023/2024 standings. This is very difficult, because you're projecting. And the thing is, you're going based off what you know now and what you see from these teams now. Obviously, sadly, injuries happen and trades happen. You don't project any of that stuff. You don't know when to anticipate any of that stuff. So, again, this is based on what we know now. This is the first time around that I'm doing this, but I feel I have a good chance of getting over 50% right. So we'll get to it. So we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. I felt it was a bit easier to decide that side of things. I've kind of seen other standing predictions, and I've seen more of the same from the Eastern Conference. So at number 15, I have the Washington Wizards. They finally traded Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. They got back Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones from that. Two former All-Stars. Two not former All-Stars, But I feel that for their future, those two guys will be better for the team. It's just when I look at the team, though, now, not really seeing much out of it, not seeing much continuity. I know that's a big word to use, but I feel that they're expected to not be as good of a team this year, so that's why I have them at 15. Now, to be fair, they could end up at 14, but I'm not going to say this whole video where a lot of these teams are going to be neck and neck. So when I see something similar in another team, there could be a one spot difference, but in the grand scheme of things, that wouldn't matter. But like I said, I could see the Wizards being better than this team. At number 14, I'm with the Charlotte Hornets. It sucks that when it comes to the Charlotte Hornets, we have to spend a lot of time talking about non-basketball related issues. And if you know me, I don't like talking about this stuff. I like talking about the basketball related things. But from the Hornets perspective, they've got way too damn much going on. And hopefully during this season they trade Terry Rozier and or Gordon Hayward just to fit their timeline projection a bit more. And I feel that Terry Rozier can contribute better to another team, and they could potentially receive something better that can help them in the future. But it's just I feel there's way too much going on with the Hornets right now for them to be a very good team. Number 13, I have the Detroit Pistons. Now, this is a little bit better than what they were last year, but last year they dealt with the injury to Cade Cunningham. They're still a very young team, and I feel that this will be the year that we recognize them as a good team and that they have a bright future. Number 12, maybe the first shocker, but I have the Toronto Raptors. I'm not as high on the Raptors. I felt that last season they had way too many downs compared to ups. It's just there's a lot of head-scratching things there. I was mainly disappointed with them at the deadline, not trading OG Anunoby or Fred VanVleet. Ultimately, they let Fred VanVleet leave in the offseason. OG Anunoby's still on the team, but I just feel it's going to be the same song and dance that we went through last year. And, oh, by the way, they lost in the play-in essentially to a child. But, I feel with the Raptors, they're a bit too stubborn, but I would like to see them make a change. Will they? I doubt it. Number 11, the Chicago Bulls. I think I said it best in my award predictions, but the Bulls on paper had something that worked. Or let's go with this. When they had Lonzo Ball, it worked. They were the number 1 seed. They were very cool. It was a very exciting team to watch. DeMar DeRozan was hitting clutch shot after clutch shot day in and day out. But ever since they lost Lonzo Ball, they've kind of lost all of that. And they are trying their best to replace Lonzo Ball with Lonzo Ball-like players. Last season it was Patrick Beverley. This season it was Javon Carter. But when you look at that, one of these guys was a second overall pick. The other two were not. Now, I'm not dissing those two, but it's just I don't see it working out for them. But like I said, on paper, hey, this team worked well when we had Lonzo. Sadly, we don't have that anymore. Let's try to get something that can replicate that. And it just hasn't been able to work yet. We see a lot of glaring issues from them from time in and time out. But I feel, again, projecting why. Because like I said, you got to project the whole year. I could see a time period where they're like, yeah, this is not working out. And they move on from a Nikola Vucevic or more than likely a DeMar DeRozan. And they try to get younger guys to contribute with Zach LaVine, who, to be fair, Zach LaVine has been in the league since 2014, but he still feels very young, and he's kind of been their main guy because he's been there the longest than anybody. But like I said, for the Bulls, even if they go in this standpoint of trading guys, I still feel they would be slightly above the Raptors. So that's why I have them at 11 and not making the play-in. At number 10, the first big jump, the Orlando Magic. I'm very high on the Magic this year. I was very high on them last year, and then just the last couple of games just didn't go their way. And they could have potentially made the play-in, but like I said, the last couple of games didn't go their way. But I just feel Paolo, second year, is going to contribute a lot more. I don't know if he's a top 30 player like other people do, but he's still going to contribute a lot more. The main guy I think is going to contribute for them is Franz Wagner. I have him as my most improved player pick. I just feel that for the Magic, they had a lot of good things going for them last year, and it's going to contribute to them a lot more this year. And when you look at the younger teams in the Eastern Conference, I feel the Pistons on paper have a lot more. This is going to confuse a lot. I feel the Pistons have a lot more better players, but in the grand scheme of things, the Magic have the best players when it comes to it. Because Paolo was the number 1 overall pick. I know Kate Cunningham was, but it's just like, definitely recency bias, but like Paolo's up here, Franz is up here, Cade I'd probably put next, but it's just I feel the Magic have a lot going for them, and it's very nice to see this because in the last 10 years for the Magic, it took them the longest time to properly rebuild, and then by the time they made the playoffs in the Nikola Vucevic era, they would win one game and then got done up, and then, so it's nice to see them make this jump so early. Now, number 9, another team that is making a bit of a jump. I have the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Haliburton is one of my favorite players to watch. He was my first round draft pick in my fantasy basketball draft. I had the 7th pick. But they added Bruce Brown, who contributed to a finals team. Now, I don't think he's going to make this team a finals team, but it's just, at least they have a sense of direction now. I think Benedict Mathurin is going to make, I don't think the biggest jump, but he's going to contribute a lot more than he did last year because he started off great and then just kind of stayed the same. Miles Turner, finally, it feels weird not hearing him in trade rumors because that's just been consistently what we've heard from Miles Turner. It's just, I feel with the addition of Bruce Brown and just finally enough good players on the team that they're going to make that jump. And like I said, they're on the trajectory of making the play-in, and then Tyrese got hurt last year, and they're just like, we're just going to call it there. So that's why I have the Pacers at 9. The Buddy Hield situation might change. I don't think that's going to be like a dramatic change that's going to make them worse if they were to trade Buddy Hield because that kind of feels very forgotten now. Number 8, I have the Atlanta Hawks. I just don't really, I'm not that high on the Hawks. I know that John Collins probably needed to be moved on. I won't lie to you. I was a big advocate of them re-signing him after their Eastern Conference finals run. But it's just like, they need to move on, but it's just like nothing they did was like put them higher in the teams. So I just felt that they stayed a bit of the same, but I hope for a jump from Saddiq Bey this year because I'm a fan of his. But like I said, for the Hawks, I still respect Trae Young. He definitely last season got thrown under the radar because people would rather hype up a Jalen Brunson or Tyrese Haliburton, but when you look at it, they kind of help their teams out a little bit more. But hopefully Trae Young kind of has a bounce back year. But the main thing is, like I said, I don't see the Hawks didn't do anything dramatic for me to have them higher or lower, so they just stayed the same because they finished as the 7th seed last year, but they won the 7th, 8th play-in matchup, which in hindsight is a bit crazy considering that the team that they beat went on to the finals. Number 7, a team that I've seen a lot of people be low on, but I've always been very high on them. I made a lot of my videos earlier talking about them. The Brooklyn Nets. Mikal Bridges, I think he's going to contribute the same that he did as he did when he came to Brooklyn. And I feel that now they have that sense of direction. They are now moved on from Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I felt that kind of lingered with them for the rest of the last year. And they didn't have Ben Simmons, which I know was a very, very small taste of what we saw from Ben Simmons in the preseason, but he looked very decent. And I don't think that we're expecting him to have, like, all-star Ben Simmons. Like, we're just expecting him to contribute something. Because last year, that just wasn't really the case. And I just feel that they have a lot of good things. I thought they had some good free agent signings in Lonnie Walker and Dennis Smith Jr. Now, I would praise Darius Bazley, but I believe he just got waived, so I can't even really say that. But it's just like, it's just with the Nets. Or, I know last year, I guess it's kind of also glaring light, but last year, a lot of them, a reason for them being a higher seed, or not even a higher seed, but the 6th seed, and then play, because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were on the team. But obviously, once they were gone, they stayed the same. So it's another case as I feel this team will stay the same. And they do have pieces that if someone was to get disgruntled or a trade was to possibly be made, hopefully the Nets jump on that opportunity and do that. So I have the Brooklyn Nets at 7. Number 6, the Miami Heat. I don't know what the hell to expect from the Heat. They did just make the finals. They did lose 2 contributing players in Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. It's very surprising because a lot of people are like, oh my God, they brought Josh Richardson back. He is going to be great for them. And, I really like Josh Richardson. But he's been on a different team like almost every freaking year. So I don't know if that is a great sign or not. But for a team that just made the finals, I don't see them falling off a cliff. I want to keep saying this, but I just see them staying the same. I know that they finished as the 8th seed last year, but I still see them contributing and still being a decent team. And hopefully some type of trade is made to put them over the top. But at this point, I have no freaking clue what that would be. So I have the Miami Heat at 6. At number 5, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. I felt it was a toss-up between the Heat and the Sixers because with the Heat, they didn't add anything to their team, and they lost something. For the Sixers, they might lose something, might not, and they still added. Free agency-wise, they signed Mo Bamba, who is now adding to their collection of good backup centers to have in case Joel misses time, because in the past it has been, I want to say DeAndre Jordan, because he didn't really contribute. Andre Drummond, last year, I'm forgetting somebody, I already know. Who the hell was their backup center last year? Paul Reed's still decent. I know that doesn't really count as a free agency signing. Montrezl Harrell and now Mo Bamba. Patrick Beverley, who I'm not going to count last year because that was a buyout signing. But Patrick Beverley has always been in the playoffs. He's always contributed to a team making the playoffs. He always has that extra fight. And then Kelly Oubre, who I feel in his time with the Charlotte Hornets got put under the radar. But obviously, the glaring issue with the Sixers is what the hell is going to happen with James Harden? Is he going to get traded to Los Angeles Clippers? I would love for another team to potentially get into the hunt and to trade for him, just so we can end this situation. Because I think the Clippers are an all right team without Harden. I don't think he is really needed. But I just kind of want this for the Sixers just to be put to rest and that we can focus on basketball for them. Because like I said, right now, the main topic with them is James Harden going to play? Is he not going to play? But in the grand scheme of things, they do have the reigning MVP. And he's been in this situation before. Ultimately, you wouldn't want to be put in this situation again, but I feel the Sixers still have a lot of good players on their team with or without James Harden. But even with James Harden, I don't know if I have them above these other 4 teams. At number 4, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were a very good team last year, and then the playoffs happened, and they crapped themselves. To be fair, a lot of those guys, it was their first time in the playoffs. Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley. Now, Donovan Mitchell, a guy that has been in the playoffs before and has dominated, I don't know what the hell happened. Now, obviously, we were talking about the regular season now. They're still going to be a good regular season team. But the main thing I'm going to worry about with them is the playoffs because the Cavs did make this big move to get Donovan Mitchell. It sadly sucks that a lot of the talk for the Cavs is, hey, is Donovan Mitchell going to try to leave us in a couple of seasons? I think not this season, but the season after. I hate that. That's the talk with the Cavs, but it's just like, they're a good regular season team last year. The guys there are still young, so on this trajectory, they should still be going up, but this is the same place that they were last year. And I feel that they're still neck and neck with this team that I have at 3, and, I have their hat on. The New York Knicks. The Knicks ended up beating the Cavs in the playoffs last year. I know, again, this is for the regular season matters, but the Knicks still, I don't know. I'm not going to say this is a prove-it year, but the Knicks made the playoffs when they 2 seasons ago, and then the year after they crapped themselves. But I feel now that they have Jalen Brunson on their team, they're going to stay a bit consistent. And again, this is even going up a little bit higher. I really enjoyed the I almost called him Donovan. There's that a tease. Dante DiVincenzo free agent signing, but I just feel the Knicks are going to, again, they're not even, they still have young players, but they're more of a veteran mix compared to these other teams I'll talk about, that the jump will be there. So I have the Knicks at 3. And again, I can see it's a coin flip between them and the Cavs, but I gave it to the Knicks because ultimately they did prove they were the better team than them last year in the playoffs. Now we get to number 2 and number 1. I've seen it mixed up. I have the Celtics at 2, the Bucks at 1. I have Giannis as my MVP winner. He's a former multiple-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and they did add Damian Lillard to the team. For the Celtics, they added Kristaps Porzingis and Marcus Smart, or Drew Holiday. They got rid of Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. Now, ultimately, the Celtics had the better player acquisitions because you added 2. But for the Bucks, they only traded Drew Holiday and Malik. My fucking God. They traded Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen. I don't blame myself for not remembering him, to get Damian Lillard. With the Celtics, they traded Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. I felt that also the Bucks had probably the most underrated free agency signing in Malik Beasley, who's in the preseason starter for them, and he might get that starting shooting guard role. And I was questioning their depth, and in the grand scheme of things, that's the main flaws with both. I would say it's the main flaw with the Celtics. The main flaw with the Bucks is Adrian Griffin going to be a good coach for them? But I feel with the number of all-stars, both teams also have an equal amount of all-stars, unless not really, because you have Lillard, Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez. I know it's been a long time since we've seen Brook Lopez be an all-star, but it still counts. With the Celtics, you got Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, Al Horford. Again, for Porzingis even, and Al Horford. It's been a long time since you've seen there. I know I'm throwing up for it, but it's 4 to 5. But I just feel that the Bucks, depth-wise, is better than the Celtics. And like I said, I think the main issue with the Celtics is their depth. The main issue with the Bucks is coaching. And I was questioning the Bucks' depth when they made the Damian Lillard trade. But I think it ultimately, because I saw them play the Grizzlies in the preseason, I think the Bucks depth-wise is okay, especially when you compare it to the Celtics. But it's just like, again, these two teams are going to be neck and neck, but I feel that a former 2-time MVP is going to put his team over the top, and the Bucks didn't make the most dramatic of changes overall team-wise. Obviously, they traded for a all-time great player, but I feel it won't hurt the team as much as other people expect it to. So that's why I have the Bucks at 1 and the Celtics at 2. Now we're 20 minutes in. We got to get to the Western Conference, which this is where the freaking chaos is. At number 15, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Now, again, talk about the preseason. Victor Wembanyama went crazy in the preseason, mainly from the highlights I saw in that Warriors game. I'm like, he might single-handedly win the Spurs some games. But ultimately, the Spurs had the number 1 pick for a reason. Team-wise, they're still very good, but as I say time and time again, they're still very young. And I would imagine the Spurs don't want to make that dramatic of a jump. They still want to be a bit young and keep adding younger talent to Victor Wembanyama and this team. But it's just like, I don't know. It's very neck and neck. But I feel that Victor Wembanyama is ultimately still a rookie. I hate saying that, but it's just like, it's a fact. Especially, I'm comparing it to other actual basketball teams. Where with the Spurs, I feel I'm mainly talking back at Wemby. I know they have Keldon Johnson. I know they have Devin Vassell. They got a lot that, it's not really questions now. It's just like, hey, let's have fun. We're going to do what we do. But in a year or two, it's like, okay, now we need to start getting more serious. That's when the questions should be asked. 14 and 13, again, I feel is a coin flip. Ultimately, I feel like changing it, but because I haven't it pinned, I'm not going to change it. At 14, I have the Utah Jazz, and at 13, I have the Houston Rockets. Now, the main reason I kind of wanted to change it is Utah very rarely has ever had a bad team. Even last year, they're very good, and then they dealt with the trade deadline. They're like, okay, we need to move on from these veteran players. Then they dealt with injuries, and then we're like, okay, we're just going to, wait till next season. See you next year type of thing. But ultimately, like I said, Utah Jazz are always a very good team. The Houston Rockets were atrocious last year and made a lot of changes in the offseason, mainly adding Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet, which Dillon Brooks is going to add a lot to them defensively, but as a Grizzlies fan, Dillon Brooks makes a lot of head-ass decisions that might cost them games. Fred VanVleet, is a former All-Star, is a former champion, but he just did not have the most consistent year last year. And Ime Udoka is a very good coach, but he's got a lot more to work with the Houston Rockets than he did with the Celtics, because at least the Celtics had been to the conference finals several times prior to him getting there. But like I said, ultimately with the Rockets, I'm mainly comparing to last year, these two teams, and the Jazz were a better team. But the Rockets, I felt, had the more noticeable and better player acquisitions this offseason. So that's why I feel they're very neck and neck, but they're still ultimately questionable teams. I didn't want to say young again, but I just did. So there we go. Number 12 is another one of those teams, but I feel that their players stand out a lot more than compared to the Rockets and Jazz. Number 12, I have the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm very high on Shaedon Sharpe. Scoot Henderson, I'm not going to say he's under the radar, but when I think of the Portland Trail Blazers, I think of Anthony Simons. I think of Shaedon Sharpe. I think of DeAndre Ayton. I think of Robert Williams. I think of Jeremy Grant. Now, ultimately, I would say two of those players might not be on this team by the end of the year, which is perfectly fine. But I feel they have a lot of, I know they have a lot of good basketball players there. Is it going to contribute to winning? Possibly. That's the good thing. Where with the Rockets and Jazz, they have a lot of good players, but I don't know if it's going to contribute to winning. With the Blazers, I feel that it possibly could. And they're probably, again, not in a position to rush to be a star-studded, very good team. They're going to ride this year out, and then they'll decide it in the offseason. But like I said, ultimately, they still have a good enough team to win games compared to the teams I have below them. And number 11, this is where it might get a bit controversial. New Orleans Pelicans. I'm not as high on the Pelicans as other people are, and I don't like talking about injuries, but that's the main thing that you have to talk about when you talk about the Pelicans. Zion is now going into year 5, and we've mainly seen one healthy season from him. That was his second year. His rookie year, he missed a lot of time. His second year, he still missed a lot of time, but not as much as compared to the other two. Year 3, he ain't even play. Year 4, he looked like a monster, and then he just stopped playing. Now we're into year 5. I hate that this is constantly the topic, but it just is. They're also got a lot of injuries very early on. They got, I'm not going to say embarrassed in the play-in, but they lost in an embarrassing fashion at home, and it definitely sucked. But it's just like, they didn't make any changes to this team that I felt like, yes, this is going to be a better team than last year. Their question is, well, if Zion stays healthy, we're going to be a very good team. But at this case, I'm going to have to see it and be proven wrong. So I have the Pelicans at number 11. And again, I think they have a lot of things that they could make a trade, but it's just it's going to be a wait-and-see situation. I want to see them make that trade, and then I'll be wrong about it. I talked about that a lot in my awards predictions last video. Now we get to the play-in playoff teams. This definitely sucks, because last season I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be a playoff team next year. And now we're into next year, and it got a lot more difficult. But at number 10, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. On NBA Twitter and in the NBA fandom, the Oklahoma City Thunder are the next big thing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a fabulous last season. Josh Giddey improved a lot. Jalen Williams was an underrated rookie, and oh yeah, they did that all with, they made the play-in, they almost made the playoffs without Chet Holmgren, who I felt is just like, when I was watching the play-in game against them and the Pelicans, I'm like, if they have Chet, they'll be a playoff team. But again, ultimately, they are very young, and the main thing is, I expected this team to make a big jump, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the same thing as last year. The main difference is the teams that are above them have a lot more veteran players and just aren't as young and have a lot more to prove than the Thunder. But the Thunder being a very good team, and again, being in the play-in, you can still make the playoffs, obviously. So that'll be something that we'll have to see when the time comes around. But, if the Thunder do not make this big of a jump, because, this is a spoiler. It's not really even a spoiler, but Slam posted this teaser that, this is our next magazine cover, and they have a bunch of silhouettes, and you can tell one of them is Chet Holmgren, you can tell one of them is Shea, so it's going to be the Thunder. I don't know what the tagline for them is, but like I said, a lot of people are I'm not going to say I'll say overhyping the Oklahoma City Thunder. If they don't make this big-ass jump, and they fall flat on their face, I will be there to start criticizing. But again, I had them staying the same. I don't think it's a diss. I do think they're a very good team. But when you look at the teams above them, they're more veteran presence. And in the grand scheme of things, it might not hurt them to stay here. And number 9, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the main good thing for the Timberwolves is Anthony Edwards. And he looked like a star last season. But we still have to question if Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert could play together, because when they did, it wasn't the best. And then the playoffs happened, and they did win a game, but it still wasn't the best season from the Minnesota Timberwolves. And again, when I keep talking about teams can make a move, teams should make a move, I don't know what the hell. The Timberwolves, I imagine, could make a move. I just don't see it happening. But like I said, this is mainly the Timberwolves being a good team, solely rest on Anthony Edwards, I feel. And again, this is another case of I feel this team is very much still the same because they didn't do anything in the offseason for me to change that. And number 8, I have the Dallas Mavericks. They lost Jalen Brunson last offseason, and then they're like, this is going to be fine. And then it obviously wasn't fine. Then they added Kyrie Irving in the middle. I'm not even going to say, but it was kind of towards the end of the season, and it just never really clicked and never got together. And then the offseason happened. They signed Grant Williams. They signed Seth Curry. They drafted Derek Lively. I just feel things are a lot more prepared this time around than it was during the actual season. And Luka Doncic, I feel, kind of got thrown under the radar a little bit, just because the Mavericks weren't that playoff team that they had been the prior 3 seasons with Luka. And I just feel that this team is a bit more prepared. And that's why I have them at the 8th seed. Now, here is where the disrespect might be. And, if I'm wrong, I will apologize. But we got a long, long, long time before that happens. I have the Sacramento Kings. They were the 3 seed. And they did have a lot of clutch and close victories. But in the grand scheme of things of the Western Conference last year, there was a lot of injuries. And the Kings were a mainly healthy team. Like I said, they were the 3 seed. I've seen a lot of people have this team a lot lower. But still, they're in the playoff hunt. But this is the last time I'll say it. They're still, I don't even want to call them a young team. So I'm not going to say, I was going to say they're a young team. When you compare them to the other teams I have above them, there's one other team they're neck and neck with. But it's just like, last year was their first year of being a playoff team. And dominant, I'm not going to even say dominant, but having good victories, respectable victories. This is going to be a year that they need to prove it again. And ultimately, they're at 7. They're still in the playoff hunt. It wasn't the most dramatic fall off, but it's just I feel that the other Western Conference teams I have above them are more experienced and more prepared for the situations. And in reality, if these other Western Conference teams are healthier, then that's where it really contributes. But now we get to another I'm not going to say controversial one. I would have thought it was a controversial one, but when I looked at other people's projections, there's kind of the same level. The Golden State Warriors. Now, the main thing with the Warriors right now is Chris Paul going to start or not? And with Draymond's injury, it more than likely is going to be Chris Paul starting in the beginning. But then that's going to be the main question. The Warriors were not good at that team last year. They had a lot of flaws. And a lot of that got pointed at Jordan Poole. But guess what? Jordan Poole's not there anymore. So now I feel a lot of the blame for the Warriors are going to be put on Chris Paul. And it's very much the same situation as last year, is essentially where I'm trying to get at. But Stephen Curry is always going to keep this team afloat. Even when he did not have Klay Thompson for a full season, the 2020 to 2021 season, the Warriors are still always afloat, and it was mainly because of Stephen Curry. So the Warriors are always going to be a team as long as Curry is there, which I anticipate that he will be. And they have a lot of freaking former All-Stars on the team. Klay, Draymond, Wiggins, Chris Paul. They have a lot of guys that have won championships. So the Warriors, again, this is the same spot that they finished as a 6 seed last year. So it's just, as of right now, I just have them as the same as they were last year. At number 5, the Los Angeles Clippers. And again, I keep referencing other standing predictions, but a lot of people are like, this is the last year for the Clippers, or the last hope for the Clippers. That's understandable. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on their last year, their deal is just, we've seen a lot of the same from them as we have. And I'll compare them to the Pelicans. But at least with the Clippers, we've seen them make the conference finals. They've made the playoffs. They had 1 year not make the playoffs. Now, there's another team I will compare them to later on. But at least with the Clippers, they have guys that have made it before. It's just, it sucks that the last 2 years, or I can even say 3 years, when they needed them, they weren't there. But again, projecting-wise, I imagine that they will be this time around. And ultimately, like I said, this is, I don't want to say last dance. I think last dance should be reserved to teams that have won championships. But last stand, I guess is the best way to put it for the Clippers. Now, number 4, Memphis Grizzlies, my team. Ultimately, the Steven Adams being out for the entire year sucks, and hopefully it is a question and red flag that we can pick the red flag up. Question is answered. Here's who is replacing Steven Adams. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. And obviously, the glaring thing with the Grizzlies is Ja Morant's missing 25 games. Ja Morant's missing 25 games. I cannot wait till that 26th game happens, and I don't have to hear that crap anymore. But the Grizzlies have been the 2 seed for the last 2 seasons. There's a lot of time that Ja Morant missed, so we have like actual number evidence towards that. And I mainly pointed that out because for the Kings, it's like, well, why the hell you got a solo? And the Grizzlies, again, this is 2-spot fall. It's a bit of a fall, but I don't think it's the most dramatic. I know a lot of Grizzly fans are hopeful, and they're saying they were going to be a lot higher than number 4. I've seen people have them at 1, people have them at 2. I don't know what evidence they have towards that. But again, if that happens, I ain't going to be complaining. I just see 4 as a respectable number from them. It's not the biggest a jump because I know they did Marcus Smart, and a lot of our guys are very good. And we had an all-star. We have a borderline all-star in Desmond Bane. Hopefully he makes it this year. But it's just like we have a lot of flaws right now that are overweighing our positives. It's difficult to make that big of a jump. And it's not, again, this is not even the biggest fall. I'm at 4. Don't think it's that questionable. Number 3, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't like giving the Lakers credit, but they're a team that made the conference finals, brought back the guys that contribute to the conference finals run, and then added more in Taurean Prince and Gabe Vincent. Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes were also added to this team, but I feel that the first 2 that I said will contribute a bit more. But the Lakers now, they're away from their unhealthy season after their finals run and their Russell Westbrook tenure. Now they're back to AD and LeBron being a dominant duo. And sadly, I'm not going to say LeBron's last dance because I don't see him retiring at the end of this year. I know there's a bit of talk about it last year, but it's just like they know what they want. They were right there, and then the Nuggets were standing there, and they're like, we not letting you through. And the Lakers were like, are you sure about that? And the Nuggets were like, yes. And then obviously what happened. But I feel the Lakers are more prepared this season than they have been the last 3 years. Number 2, the Phoenix Suns. Now, this is my hot take. Phoenix Suns won't make the finals. That's just my hot take. I think this will be, I hate saying this, but I will say it. I think they're a good regular season team. They have a lot of good regular season players. In the grand scheme of things, their whole quota is who's going to guard all 3 of us at once. Now, I said that about Kyrie and Luka when that trade was made. Who the hell's going to guard both those guys at once? And then, obviously, that didn't matter because who the hell are they guarding when it mattered most? And the same thing applies to this trio. The main difference is, you got to guard one more guy. But the sentiment still stands. Who the hell they guard when it matters most? But when it comes to the regular season and regular season matchups, teams that you won't be facing in the playoffs, you will get wins based on that. But when it comes to playoff action, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Now, I know this is regular season wise, but like I said, the Suns have been consistently the past couple of years a good regular season team, None of the guys they added to this team make them any worse than last season, and they're still very good players that they added. But the grand scheme of things, the main question I have for the Suns is, or it's not even a question, but something I wanted to point out. You did make the finals. One person is left from that. You traded DeAndre Ayton. You traded... It was two. But like I said, you traded DeAndre Ayton. You traded Chris Paul. You fired Monty Williams. You traded all these other guys. One guy's left from that. It's Devin Booker. Now, ultimately, you did get Kevin Durant, but it's just... They got it's just another case of they've got a lot to add up and make a sandwich out of. So, I don't know if they will be able... I think they'll be able to do it. I think they will. Number one, it's obvious, the defending champion, Denver Nuggets. I would have loved if they addressed adding Bruce Brown and Jeff Green replacement, but ultimately I feel that they're like, hey, this starting five, this main five, won us a championship. We still have a lot of young guys that do a lot of what Bruce Brown does, and they could potentially replace him. And like I said, the Nuggets, they have some things there that if the time comes and my issue for them, the Bruce Brown replacement, could be addressed at the deadline. But like I said, Nuggets just won the championship. Nothing these other teams did in the offseason is going to like change that, but I'm backtracking that statement. But like I said, I'm trying to think what is the statement I'm looking for. They just won the championship. That is the grand scheme of things. They won out their main five. Their main five's still back there. They got a lot of good things that could potentially come. Hidden gems is the word I'm looking for there. And we'll see how this goes. So I just went through all 30 teams in 37 minutes. We got a couple of months. We got a long road ahead of us. The season starts tomorrow. I want to get this video out there in case, because I had planned this video for Sunday and then I didn't do it. And then ultimately the Steven Adams news came out and now I potentially could change it all, but I didn't. I stayed the same. So like I said, we got a long road ahead of us and I'm looking forward to this journey. Thank you for watching this video. Stay safe. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. I need to blow my nose. I don't know. I don't think you can see the snot, but the snot is slowly coming out. So I want to get that taken care of. Y'all take care of yourselves. See ya when I see ya.